Evening and welcome. The President Trump-led trade war rocking both friends and foes.
Have you ever wondered how a trade war halfway around the world could impact your daily life, your car, the food on your table, or even the job you hold? Well, buckle up because it's happening right now. President Trump's 25% tariff on European car imports has triggered a massive chain reaction that's affecting everything from car prices to global supply chains. And it's not just for big businesses, it's hitting you, the consumer, right in your wallet. In today's video, we're breaking down how this trade war could shake up your finances, the industries you rely on, and what you can expect in the months ahead. We'll uncover how this all connects and give you the inside scoop on how you could be impacted and why you should care. So if you want to understand how this global conflict is affecting your everyday life and what to expect next, stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe for more insights on global issues that matter to you. In recent weeks, President Trump has made headlines with a bold decision that has sent shockwaves across the globe. He's imposed a 25% tariff on European car imports, a move that has escalated tensions between the United States and Europe. This decision is framed as a step to correct what the U.S. sees as long-standing trade imbalances. In 2024, 25.3% of U.S. car import spending was directed to European suppliers. However, this tariff is more than just about trade. It's a global economic conflict that could reshape industries and international relations. The European Union has retaliated with 26 billion euro worth of tariffs, targeting key sectors of the U.S. economy, including agriculture, technology, and consumer goods. The stakes are high, and the ramifications are far-reaching, impacting everything from consumer prices to jobs, and even global political alliances. Europe's response has been swift and calculated. The European Commission, led by Ursula von der Leyen, made it clear that Europe would not sit idly by. Retaliatory tariffs have been launched, targeting not only American cars, but also agricultural products like soybeans, beef, and poultry from key Republican states. For example, Louisiana's soybean farmers, many of whom support Trump, now face higher duties on their exports to Europe. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Europe imports over $2.43 billion worth of U.S. soybeans annually. Similarly, poultry producers in Kansas and Nebraska, key battleground states for Trump, are feeling the pain. Kansas alone exports $200 million in poultry to Europe, and new tariffs will make these products less competitive. These targeted strikes aren't random, they are politically strategic. Europe knows that by hitting industries in Republican strongholds, it's increasing political pressure on Trump's administration. The tariffs aren't just about economic retaliation, they are a political message. The damage isn't limited to farmers. American technology and consumer goods are also in the firing line. Products from Apple to Coca-Cola could face tariffs, making them more expensive for European consumers. The U.S. tech industry exported $335 billion worth of products to Europe in 2021, and tariffs could severely affect this vital market. Let's move on to the economic theory behind tariffs. Tariffs are taxes placed on imported goods to make them more expensive, encouraging people to buy domestic products. Trump's goal is to bring manufacturing jobs back to America by imposing tariffs on European cars. The idea is that American automakers will be forced to build more cars on U.S. soil, reducing reliance on foreign imports. But here's the issue. Higher tariffs mean higher production costs for U.S. automakers. European car parts are a major component of American vehicles, including high-tech German transmissions and Italian components. According to the American Chamber of Commerce to the EU, 30% of the average American car is made up of imported parts, much of which comes from Europe. With the new tariffs, these components become more expensive. As a result, production costs soar, and this burden often falls directly on consumers. Ford, General Motors, and Tesla all rely on European suppliers for essential parts. The tariffs could lead to higher car prices, production delays, and job losses. For instance, a $40,000 car could see its price increase by $5,000 due to the tariff, further burdening American families. While Trump's plan is designed to help U.S. manufacturing, it could have unintended consequences for consumers and workers. Now, let's get to the part that hits home the impact on everyday consumers. While you might not see the tariff battle on the news every day, you'll certainly feel it in your wallet. Let's talk about cars. As mentioned, American-made cars will become significantly more expensive in Europe. For example, a Jeep or Ford in Europe could see its price tag jump by 25%. In 2020, the U.S. exported 56 billion euros worth of vehicles to Europe, and now this market is under threat. Conversely, if you live in the U.S., the cost of European cars, like BMWs or Mercedes-Benz, will increase due to the tariffs. Even if you don't drive a luxury car, you will feel the effects. Everyday vehicles are made with parts from all over the world, and tariffs on European components mean that your local car dealer might raise prices. This will especially hurt middle-class families who rely on affordable cars to get to work and support their families. The food industry is another area where the tariffs will hurt. Agricultural exports from the U.S., such as soybeans, beef, and poultry, will become more expensive in Europe. This could lead to job cuts for U.S. farmers and higher food prices at your local grocery store. For example, beef exports to Europe from the U.S. are worth about $1.3 billion annually, and poultry exports are valued at $1 billion. With a 25% tariff, consumers could see direct price hikes in these goods. If you regularly buy beef or chicken, you might start noticing a rise in prices. These agricultural products are critical to global food markets, and any disruption, especially in the U.S., one of the world's largest producers, could result in a domino effect that impacts everything from prices to supply chains. The ripple effects of these tariffs are also felt in industrial sectors that rely on global supply chains. American farmers aren't the only ones at risk. Automakers are also facing job losses. With American car manufacturers like Ford and Tesla relying on European parts, the tariffs are expected to lead to production delays and higher prices. If these costs continue to rise, companies may be forced to lay off workers. The American automotive industry employs over 1 million people, and many of these workers could be impacted by this trade war. The Midwest is particularly vulnerable to these economic shifts. States like Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, home to many auto factories, could see job cuts as manufacturers cut back on production due to rising material costs. These are key battleground states for Trump's re-election, and if voters in these states see their jobs disappear, it could spell trouble for his political future. In the agriculture sector, states like Iowa, Nebraska, and Kansas rely heavily on exports to Europe. The U.S. exports about 15% of its total agricultural products to Europe, and these markets are now at risk. The tariffs could put thousands of farming jobs at risk and lead to economic strain in rural communities. The U.S.-Europe trade war has already begun to take its toll, from higher car prices to rising food costs and the threat of job cuts. The economic consequences are far-reaching. The fallout is already being felt by consumers, and businesses across the Atlantic are bracing for even more disruptions. While the Trump administration defends its tariffs as necessary to level the playing field, the long-term consequences could be more damaging than anticipated. The growing instability in the automotive, agricultural, and steel industries is just the beginning. And with both the U.S. and EU showing no signs of backing down, we could be in for a prolonged period of economic uncertainty. As always, the global economy is interconnected, and trade wars rarely have winners. For consumers, staying informed and prepared for inevitable changes that affect the price and availability of goods is key. The world is watching, and the coming months will determine how deep the impact of this trade war will go. Thank you for watching, and be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video to stay updated on the latest economic developments. The tension between the U.S. and Canada has reached a boiling point, and it's about to reshape the future of both nations. What was once a close economic partnership is now threatened by tariffs, trade barriers, and escalating political rhetoric. This isn't just a battle over trade deals. It's a clash of national interests, with each side digging in their heels. And the consequences are already starting to hit home. In 2025, the U.S. and Canada find themselves at the epicenter of an escalating trade war that's unraveling decades of economic cooperation. What began with President Trump's tariffs on Canadian goods has quickly evolved into a larger confrontation, targeting everything from oil exports to the vital trade route through Canada to Alaska. The stakes couldn't be higher. Both nations are now locked in a battle over national pride, economic stability, and political influence. As tensions rise, both countries are taking measures that threaten to affect their everyday citizens, creating uncertainty, higher costs, and strained diplomatic relations. This video explores how the growing rift between the U.S. and Canada is shaping the present and future for millions of people, and why this trade war could change the landscape of North America forever. The conflict started when President Donald Trump imposed a 25% tariff on Canadian goods in 2025, a decision driven by the U.S. administration's broader economic strategy to address perceived trade imbalances. Trump's administration argued that Canadian trade practices, particularly in sectors like steel, aluminum, and dairy, were unfair to American industries. This marked the beginning of a series of retaliatory tariffs and countermeasures. For instance, the U.S. dairy industry faced serious disruption with the imposition of Canadian tariffs. Dairy products, like milk and cheese, traditionally sourced from the U.S., for Canadian supermarkets, saw significant price hikes. By mid-2025, milk prices in the U.S. are projected to rise by 5 to 7% due to Canadian retaliatory tariffs. This cost increase has directly impacted U.S. households, pushing grocery bills higher. Similarly, the tariffs on U.S. steel and aluminum exports to Canada saw a 15% increase in production costs for manufacturers across the U.S., affecting everyday consumer products such as bicycles, appliances, and automobiles. For American consumers, this meant higher prices for durable goods. These initial moves set the stage for further escalation as Canada, under the leadership of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, retaliated by implementing surcharges on electricity exports to several U.S. states. This action, affecting states like Michigan and New York, has seen approximately 1.5 million households in the U.S. facing rising energy bills. In essence, what began as a conflict over steel and aluminum quickly expanded to sectors that directly impacted everyday life: dairy prices, the cost of energy, and consumer goods. Alaska, being geographically separated from the mainland U.S., is critically dependent on Canadian land routes for access to the rest of the country. The transportation of goods to and from Alaska largely occurs through Canada, making this trade route indispensable for U.S. industries that rely on Alaskan resources like oil, seafood, and minerals. Approximately 4,000 trucks per day travel through Canada to supply goods to Alaska, and many of these trucks carry goods essential to U.S. markets. At the heart of the trade dispute is the possibility that Canada could block or heavily tax U.S. trucks passing through Canadian territory on their way to Alaska. This route serves not only to supply consumer goods, but also to transport Alaskan oil, which accounts for 4 to 5% of U.S. crude oil production. In 2024, this amounted to 426,000 barrels per day, being transported through Canada to U.S. refineries. A disruption in this supply chain would have profound implications not only for the U.S. economy, but also for global oil markets. If Canada moves forward with imposing tariffs or additional tolls on this trade route, it could cost the U.S. economy over $140 million daily in lost revenue from the transportation of goods. This is particularly concerning given the scale of trade between the two nations, which amounts to over $762.1 billion annually. For U.S. businesses that depend on Alaskan resources or goods from Alaska, this could lead to substantial financial losses, as companies would face either increased costs for transporting goods or an inability to access critical materials. For everyday consumers, the impact is immediate. Gasoline prices in the U.S. could rise by 10 to 15% due to disruptions in the oil supply from Alaska, as Alaska's oil exports are critical for meeting U.S. energy demands. At the same time, Alaskan seafood, including popular items like salmon, could see price hikes, of up to 20% due to increased shipping costs through Canadian routes. These changes in pricing would affect not only the fishing industry, but also the retail sector, particularly